everyone. This is Carmen with Coffee with Carmen, and I'm the one with my coffee cup. Jenna passed.
You're good.
She did. She's like, "Nah, I can't do it." But we're excited to be here. I know it's been a while that we've joined you. A lot of things have came up, um, and it's those things while things are coming up. We just keep trusting God and believing. And our topic today is we're just gonna keep it simple and say celebrate, because when things happen, whether there are things that we brag about, things that we just say, "Wow, this happened," and everyone sees the excitement on our faces, or those things that come up that we're talking to God and saying, "Really, God?" We want to celebrate through every single moment, because that's how it should be. We should celebrate, and we're going to talk about that today. Um, so thank you again for being a part of Coffee with Carmen. I do miss being here with you.
Yeah.
Jen, I know Shauna couldn't be here, but she'll be here next time.
Yeah.
So, and Brandon's here. He's in the back. Let's give a shout out. But yeah.
Okay.
So Jenna,
Mhm.
what are you wanting to say about that? Like when you celebrate different
Yeah.
things in your life when it comes to God.
Yeah. So, thinking about it, it's kind of like, at least for me, when, well, at least what I used to think was like, hey, when I get to this point, then I can celebrate.
Mhm.
Or when this happens, then I can celebrate. And it was always like me waiting to do it. Like,
Right.
things had to align
Right.
perfectly, and circumstances had to be good for me to celebrate.
Right.
But more recently, as we've been talking about it, I think, and God has really been showing me, like, stop waiting for everything to align to celebrate.
Right.
Because if you think about it, like, everything that happens to us, good or bad, right? Like, God is in control of all of it. So, and He has the victory in the end.
Right.
So, like, if we know that and we trust that, then we have every reason to celebrate, even through, like, our trials, even through things that are happening in our own lives.
Right.
So, thinking about that, I was reading Job.
Mhm.
We were talking a lot about Job. And just everything that Job went through, sometimes I identify with Job
Right.
in my own life.
Right.
And I read, it was Job chapter 42, verse 2. Or we'll start at 1. It says, "Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted." So when we really trust what God is doing,
Mhm.
like, we have to celebrate the fact. So it's
Right.
not like our feelings that determine it. It's like, I trust God and I trust what He's doing, and I can celebrate that fact.
Right.
So even if it's bad now in my own life,
Mhm.
like, God is calling me to encourage other people even through trials in my own life,
Right.
to spread light and love and joy,
Right.
because Satan wants to steal our joy.
Right.
He wants to take it from us.
Right.
And so for me, it's been like deciding, okay, I'm not going to let that happen, because, like, God's given me all these things, and in the end He wins. Like,
Mhm.
I have every reason to celebrate.
Right. And it's true. I know we had been talking about Job just because of things that have come up, and learning to walk through it and trust God. And sometimes we feel like we're walking in this season where, a lot of great happens, and then something comes up, And I know we had missed a few Wednesdays, but we were getting ready to film, and then something came up, and so we were each. It seemed like every week something came up that was not a positive thing; it was a negative thing that came up, and we were like, "What is happening right now?" And we did talk about Job, and I went back and I was reading Job, and in the very beginning, it does say how, Job was faithful to God and how he loved God and God knew his heart, and how Satan went to talk to God, but he went with, and the one thing that I never realized here, it says he went with, the angels went and Satan like followed them. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, how does that happen? But then I started thinking, you know what, God, in our own lives, you're walking with us, but yet Satan's always there. You know? So it was kind of that's how God put it in my brain.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're always talking with me, and you're, you know, and the angels are embracing you, and God's around you, but Satan's always there. You know? And he's always there because he's always wanting you to doubt who God is in your life.
Yeah.
He's always wanting you to doubt that God's really being faithful to you, and he doesn't want you to believe in what God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
Even like there's things that I strongly believe in, and then sometimes Satan's like, "Wow, do you really believe in that?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do," you know. And it's part of that thing like Job here, where it says, you know, that Satan went, and then God, you know, God told Satan, "Well, go ahead, you know, but don't, you know, you can't end his life." And he went to the point where, you know, not only was it his livestock or how he made money and everything, but then, you know, his children they said that his children were celebrating. They were celebrating like a sibling's birthday, and how the servant comes to tell Job, and that was like the last thing, that all his children were dead. And, you know, and through that it says that how Job like surrendered to God, like he totally went to God and just said, "Okay, God, you know, I'm still your servant." And sometimes through life, you know, we have to realize that no matter what happens, we have to remember to just release it all. And that's the way I see it when it says that he, you know, like shaved his head and all of that. And I feel like that's what we do. Like we release what we're feeling, we release what we're going through, and just surrender it all to God, no matter what it is. Because we have to realize that God is with us on a daily basis, and we have to learn to celebrate those moments, whether, you know, we're falling apart or whether we're rejoicing and everyone sees that we're happy and we're proclaiming the word of God. But no matter what, we have to proclaim his word, just like when his wife came, and he came here where actually in chapter 2 it talks about when then Satan went back and he totally, like, Job's body became ill to the point that he had sores. And at that point, even his wife came to him and said, "Are you really going to, you know, are you still going to proclaim?"
Why don't you just curse God?
Yeah,
and
just
die?
curse God and die. That's what she said. And he let her know, like, "No, I'm not, because am I only to speak of him when it's good? You know, I have to trust him when it's good and when it's not." And that's what God is asking all of us to do, is to do that, to celebrate every moment, no matter what, you know, and just surrender it to him, like give it to him, and not to allow our own emotions get in the way. You know, because people, as you continue to read Job, it talks about his friends and how they came and they're saying all these things, and Job's just trying to be level-headed, you know. So yeah.
I think it's one thing to have, like, to rejoice and be joyful when things are going good, but like in the moment when things are not going good, can you still rejoice and be joyful? Because, like, if you can, like, your testimony is so much more powerful.
Yes.
Because it's like, I really trust God through all of this. Like, everything that's happening, even for me in my own life right now, like, everything that's happening, it's not good, right? It's like, you could easily focus on everything that's gone wrong.
Right.
And all that's going to do is discourage me. So, like, your emotions, right? When you're depressed, you're sad. You know, you can go through life just going through the motions. Like, that's what happens. And then you're not a light for Jesus. And then Satan wins because you are stuck in your feelings and your emotions of how depressed I feel. But if you can decide, it's like a decision of saying, like, I'm going to be joyful even through all this because I know who God is. Like, and it's relying on that, depending on that, versus my feelings and my emotions in the situation.
Right. And I think, like, that's the one thing that Job didn't do, through what I was reading, was he didn't focus on his emotions. He just remembered who God's always been for him. And I had wrote down 2 words. I wrote down believe and celebrate. And I think, like, it says here to celebrate is to acknowledge and to proclaim the glory of. And in order to celebrate, you have to believe. You have to believe in what the word says. You have to believe that God is with you. You have to believe that through every single moment of the day, without a doubt, that God does not leave you, you know, and celebrate through everything, because people see that. They see that in you, and they're always wondering, like, what is it? I had someone tell me not too long ago, they came into where I work, and they're like, you know, I don't know why, but every time I come in here, and you always look like you always joyful. Like I've never really met someone that's always joyful. And I just said, well, you know what? I said, I read the word every day, and I just let God embrace me to the fullest. And I allow him to just sit there so that I can lead others to Christ. I just want to be a voice for him, and to remind people that no matter what, he's there. And don't get bitter. Don't get all these things that people hold on to, because Job could have done that. He could have held on to it, and he didn't. And at the end, you know, he did receive double blessing from God. And double blessing, just for me, is just knowing that God is there, and him always pouring into me so that I can pour into others. I mean, because that's what people need. They need to hear that through it all, just celebrate with him. You know, because he's not gonna ever leave you. You know.
And sometimes, like, too, we don't know what people are going through, you know, and maybe you're that one person that brings that joy and light back to them in that moment, and that's what they needed.
Right.
You know, but if we end up stuck in what we're feeling, and we don't pay attention to those things, like, that's when God, you know, he can't use us for bringing him glory. So,
yeah. And there's so many things that happen in our lifetime, not just the present, but the past. And just learning to let go of those things. Because how can you proclaim God if you don't let go of those things? People hear what you say, you know, and they watch. And just like Job's wife, like she knew what he would say, but she also watched him still proclaim who God was in his life. And I know, I did write the word believe, and it's like accept something to feel sure, to feel sure of the truth of. And then I put hold on to something. And it says to have faith, to be confident, be certain, trust, feel sure, to have a firm or wholehearted to the regard of the existence of God as a fact. You know, so all of this tied in with that word believe, and I took it off Webster. You know?
I like that. Fact. It's a fact. Like, it's fact, right?
It's a fact.
Like, it's not how I feel today. Like, it's fact. It's fact. Like, I could celebrate now. I don't have to wait for everything to be perfect, because the truth is, like, nothing will ever be totally and completely perfect.
No. Like,
we can't keep expecting things to align and be perfect. There's always going to be something.
Right.
And so it's just finding the joy, deciding in the moment, like, what can I choose to be joyful about?
Right. And I know, like, sometimes someone, you know, you come across someone that's feeling discouraged, and you know by the words that they're saying. And it's one of those things where I get excited when God puts me in that position, where I can remind them. I know they know Christ. But I can remind them, like, you know, God is so big, and this is what he did for me, and I want them to see the truth behind it. Because even it says here on the word, to believe is accept something, to feel sure of the truth of, you know. I want them to feel it. I want them to feel the truth of God just coming out, so that they know, like, there's nothing that they can't celebrate, you know, because you're going to share one day. You know, people always go through things, but when they share, and they get to celebrate through it, but also later when you're telling someone about it, because it encourages them, you know, to be able to just believe, just to believe, because we all need to believe that, you know.
And I think you have to be honest too with yourself of, like, like in those moments of discouragement,
Mhm.
like if you just are honest with yourself, with God, like, hey God, like you said, Job surrendered it all.
Yeah.
Like, God, this is what I'm feeling today. Like,
Mhm.
I know it's not truth, but this is what I'm feeling.
Right.
Like, and just have that honest moment of surrender with God, and
Right.
like He's gonna replace it. He's gonna replace it with joy. He's gonna
Mhm.
replace it with the things that give you strength in that moment.
Right.
'Cause it, yeah, and I mean, I've come to you how many times now, like, Carmen,
Yeah.
help me out of this. Like, help me to see what the truth is, because sometimes when you're so deep in your feelings, like you can't
Mhm.
sometimes come out of
Right.
that and see the truth.
Right.
So it's kind of like on each other to help encourage each other.
Right.
But like if we're all just waiting for things to feel better, you know,
Mhm.
we would never be there for one another.
Right.
So
No, it's
yeah.
true, and I feel the same. You know about you. You know, like I'll reach out to you, or you know, you help me to remind me
Mhm.
of the different things that we're doing together. Having a different mindset on certain things. I know we talked in the past about starting a new journey, and just the whole mindset of how you look at things. It can
Mhm.
be as simple as I've noticed that, like, women
Mhm.
have this thing about they always focus on their outer appearance,
Mhm.
and but yet God is saying, like, whatever lives within you radiates on the outside.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, how many
Yeah.
rolls you have or how many wrinkles you have. You know, it's just celebrating through those moments of
Yeah.
moving forward with it, your mindset and all of that.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and even like this past few weeks, not being able to sit here
Mhm.
with with coffee with you and
Yeah.
with Shauna and with Brandon. I mean, that can be discouraging too, because here we're getting ready and something comes up.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, they're not little things, because we would still sit here. It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Sounds some pretty big stuff.
yeah, it was some pretty big stuff. So, and I thought to myself, you know what, God, you're doing something for these things to be coming up on the day that we're supposed to be filming each
Yeah.
week. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, nope.
Being a stand.
We're making a stand, and we need all of you to make a stand. Like, don't ever feel defeated. Surrender it to Him. Celebrate through it.
Yeah.
And don't wait. And reach out to someone. If I always encourage everyone, pick up the Bible, pick up your phone, even if you just have a few minutes. I'm not one to say, oh, you gotta. Yes, it's good to spend time with Him, but there's those times when you wake up late, or it's a new thing for you and you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just one verse.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just one verse that like hits you, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And then what's crazy about that is like to think that God knew that you needed that word in that moment. Like, just goes to show, like, He's in every little detail,
Right.
like we've talked about. He sees, He knows, like, sometimes we forget that. And that's what we can celebrate, is like, God is right there with us. Like you said, God is with us, but Satan is with us.
Yeah.
So it's like, which one do we want to pick? You know, like, in those moments.
Yeah, and I did think that was weird. I'm like, well, why did it say that?
Yeah.
That the angels went, but there was Satan, and I'm like, well, that's life.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is. He's everywhere. But God is the mighty one. He is the one that overpowers, overrules everything. But, Satan feels that he's the one, and especially with so many things going on, can be discouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And just make us believe and feel that we have to focus on other things other than what God is trying to show us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, I just want, I don't know, I just really felt like, during these past few weeks, how each time we weren't able to film, and it can be discouraging, because we don't want all of you to believe like, oh, what are they doing? They're not doing it anymore, or they gave up. No, we will never give up. No. Because there's always that one person that needs to hear what God is up. Whatever we're saying, we always pray and we always ask God to allow us to say what He wants us to say.
Yeah.
Allow us to be His voice, because we don't want it. it's not about us at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And what we said before is like a lot of the things we talk about come from things we're either previously experienced or currently experiencing.
Yeah.
So it tends to come to life,
Right.
and that's what's been happening is we've been experiencing things that could easily discourage us,
Right.
but choosing joy instead.
Right.
So yeah.
Choosing to celebrate,
Mhm.
you know, because how can you celebrate if you have no joy?
Yeah.
How can you celebrate if you can't see the peace in God through it?
Mhm.
How can you celebrate if you just focus on all the
Mhm.
other stuff?
Mhm.
You know, God's like, I'm your focus point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm your focus point. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's one of those things. I have a friend, and I don't know. She bikes and she bikes on the trails, and I'm like, man, you're brave. I'm like, I could never do that. And I'm like, how do you do that? She says, you just keep your eye on the trail.
Mhm.
You know, you don't look from side to side because that's when you go off the curve.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with God. Like, you have to stay focusing on Him. He's your focus point.
Yeah.
You know, He's the one that you focus on and celebrate through everything. Because if you look from side to side, that's when you fall over. That's when you feel defeated.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, can you imagine? You know, I know that when Job went through what he went through and his friends came and said, well, you obviously did this and did that. But, you know, he had to continue keeping his focus point. And I'm not done reading Job.
Yeah.
But I know from what I've read, he's continued to keep his focus point.
Yeah. Keep your focus point, because sometimes, like, at least for me, something God's been growing out of, like, working out of my mindset is that it's nothing that you do. Like, you're good or bad, like, whatever, whoever you are, like, it's not, circumstances are not dependent upon that. Like, I still love you regardless. I love you. Like, it's not anything having to do with your performance and who you are. So oftentimes, at least for me, I've correlated the fact that if things are going bad in my life, I must have done something to dishonor God or be disobedient. And, like, that's what they're talking about to Job, too.
Right.
It's like, well, what did you do, Job? He's like, not like nothing. I've always honored God. Like, and then in those moments, that's when you can either question it, like maybe God doesn't really love me, like He says He does, or you can choose to say, okay, God, I trust you.
Right.
Right. So like that's been something that's been, I think, kind of in my heart is like God's love is so unconditional.
Right.
Like we have to, and that's what we have to celebrate. Like that's what we celebrate every day.
Yeah, celebrate the love that He has for us. Celebrate His faithfulness. Celebrate that He is true. He is the truth. You know, celebrate, what else did I have there? You know, that we are confident in Him. Celebrate that we're sure, you know, that there's nothing about Him that is, isn't, there's nothing about Him that isn't true. Nothing about Him that isn't right. Everything about Him is perfect, you know?
Yeah.
So
Just laughing at the dog.
we have an audience. We have a dog in here. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just grateful and thankful for God and thankful for His, while Satan's there, God is bigger. And I celebrate through every situation, you know, and at that same, as I do that, I want to bring many with me, because I've already said to God, anything I do, I just want to do it for you. You know, I'm willing to do open and speak and your truth anywhere, you know, even if it's at the grocery store and God's like, oh, you better go say something, you know. Yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. I'm just excited. I'm excited that we're here.
Yeah.
I'm excited because God trusts us, and I'm excited because He trusts us. He knows that we believe in Him, and that what we're doing is for Him and to bring many with us. So it's an exciting time. It's a time to celebrate, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
So Yeah, is there anything else you want to say? No? So celebrate with us, be a part of, opening your word in the morning. I know from time to time, on Facebook, even Instagram, I'll read a scripture and I'll share it. And it's just my way of reaching out in between the time, especially, we hadn't been going live.
Yeah.
But it's just my way of letting you know that God is real, that He lives in me, and I want to bring you with me. I want you to share that moment so that you can rejoice with me and celebrate through it, through those things that you're going through, and not to doubt who God is. And, we've always said this, but if you ever have any prayer or anything, you can always put in the comments and we'll pray for you. We pray for one another all the time. And I pray for so many other people. God has put me in a position where I get to meet a lot of people and I get to pray with them, let them know how big God is, and just show them His love on a daily basis. And I'm happy.
Yeah.
So, thank you again for watching us. Thank you for joining us with Coffee with Carmen. And I hope you had your favorite cup of coffee. And as I always say, don't ever forget, always remember that there's always hope in Jesus. God bless.